Evening. Evening to all our honors, masters and doctoral students. Thank you for attending this session, which is an overview of theoretical frameworks and their contribution to your study. We were meant to have part 1 yesterday and part 2 today. You will all know that we experienced some technical issues last night and we could not have part 1. We've had similar sort of issues today, but we're trying to get around them. And really the issue is more to do with Microsoft Teams seems to have lost its stability somewhere, somehow, but we will proceed in any case. If for any reason you lose us or anything happens, please watch out for the recordings because they generally were able to preserve the integrity of the recording, even though we've had problems in other forms. So once again, I say today's session is on theoretical frameworks. We're going to deal with sections 1 and 2 all in one. So it may seem like I'm covering a lot, but it has been done. We've done it before. We're just going to try and put it together into one session today. My name is Professor Tennyson Mokuchini. I am the facilitator for tonight and also happen to be the project leader for this accelerated master's and doctoral program. And this is the program that we use to support all our master's and doctoral students, but we are also aware that many of our honors students have research requirements in their programs. And of course, they are the master's and doctoral students of tomorrow. So on that, with that as the point of departure, I just want to share a couple of things about the order of the evening. I will soon put up the screen. And once I put up the screen, it will take my voice, my face off. I will do the presentation, and at the very end, I will look through the question and answer section and respond to any of the questions that you have. I hope that is in order with all of you. We're going to just turn off my face now and allow you to have a quick look at the actual screen itself. As I've said, we are going to be theoretical and conceptual frameworks and how you use them within your study. Right. Okay, so just as a basic thing, so you will work out from the topic that the focus is on literally on the role of theory as it relates to your study. And this is true for every level of study. So if you are doing an honors level a research piece, if you're doing a master's level research piece or doctoral level research piece, the theory has got a role to play. And that theory is the same theory that informs your theoretical frameworks, and it is the same theory that guides you in developing your conceptual framework. The only differences that exist between the different levels of study is that at honors level, you touch on theoretical issues just a little bit. In master's level, there's a bit more of an explicit attendance to theory. And of course, at doctoral level, it's much, much more explicit. So generally speaking, people who do honors level will integrate theory throughout the different chapters of their work. Generally speaking, those who are working on master's and doctoral work will have a distinct section, which is often called chapter 3, where they really focus in on the theoretical and conceptual frameworks. That is the generic sense. Hey, there will be variations. There are people who do a master's, but maybe the master's is designated as being a master's of limited scope, in which case part of the limitation in scope will be that the master's is has is designed in a way where the theoretical elements are minimized. But in any case, whichever format of study you're in, you still need to integrate theory into your work. And what this session does is it speaks you through that integration. So, as always, when we talk about theory or any concept, we need to begin by specifying some of the characteristics of that concept. You will notice that I speak about this as if it's really about a doctoral thesis, but you will all appreciate that the doctorate is the apex of your study expectations, but a master's level is kind of a mini doctorate, and honors level is a mini master's level piece of work, which in turn is a mini doctorate. So if we get you to understand theory from as high a level as the understanding of theory from a doctoral level, then it makes sense that you would have you would do exceptionally well in applying that at master's level, honors level, and so forth. This session, as I've stated, is split into two. The first bit really looks at the definitional issues around theory, just so we understand what theory is, what it means, how we see it, what part it plays. Then we look at theory and its existence, and there's something I refer to here as a three-factor exploration. And that three-factor exploration basically talks about three ways in which theory is utilized in your work. Be it honors level, master's level, doctorate. A theory makes an appearance in three ways. So we'll speak to you about those three ways. And then, of course, I will expand on those three ways in the first session. So now, as always, it's always good to understand the thing that we're talking about and understand it in terms of its definitional components, the things that make it. So with Pollitt and Beck, and these are very famous and well-known writers in the field of research, they say theory is an abstract generalization. So abstract generalization means it's not really linked in reality. It's a thought or an ideology that allows us to make some assumptions when we are explaining something that we're looking at. So theory is an abstract generalization that offers us a systematic explanation about how phenomena are interrelated. Embedded in this view, is the view that a theory has two interrelated but distinct purposes. So theories help you to explain things. If you have a theory about something, it gives you the chance to explain what is going on in relation to that something. So when I say, please, do you have a theory about what causes violence, for example? Then in theory, what I'm basically saying is that I have a position that's not a position that's based in my thoughts about what violence is, so I can explain it, but also the theory offers you an opportunity to predict certain behaviors in relation to the phenomena that you're talking about. So a theory has two very distinct purposes. Remember that. It helps you to explain and it helps you to predict. So when you apply or utilize theory in your study, you're utilizing theory in terms of its ability to explain what is going on and in its ability to give you the power to predict what could be. So that is basically, but we are saying that it's an abstract generalization. So it's a way of thinking about a phenomena and it's in the components of that phenomena in a way that allows you to explain what's going on and to predict what is likely to happen in relation to that phenomena. And any set of things, I can look at any topic. We can look at the theory about what causes what if someone said offers theories about terrorism, you would be able from those theories to explain what terrorism is and to predict its occurrence and talk about what the conditions for terrorism to occur are. And that's basically what a theory can do. Of course, there are others who have spoken about this. Walker and Avant say a theory is an internally consistent group of relational statements that present a systematic view about a phenomena, and they are useful for describing, explaining, prediction, and prescription or control. In essence, once again, we center on that explanation and prediction part. If you can explain what's going on and you can predict it, you can definitely describe it. You can also make some, if you can predict and it's something that you don't want to happen, then you can also prescribe control measures for that thing based on the theory. So really it's an explanatory framework for explaining what's going on and predicting what could be. In the world of theory, people will say, there are steps that occur when people develop a theory. Remember, a theory relates to a phenomena that you're looking at, but that phenomena will have concepts in it. It will have small ideas that are contained within it. So if the phenomena that we're looking at is a phenomena of the factors that cause violence, for example, then people will say the concepts that are central to that might be things to do with the issue of concepts to do maybe with biological disposition. It may also be to do with maybe if people are socialized to be violent and so forth. So the first step in developing any theory is to know what the small elements of that phenomena are, what the small concepts that describe that phenomena are. Then you have to develop a statement about how those concepts are related to each other. And on the basis of that statement, which may be full of things, you are able then to take out some patterns and come up with a theoretical statement about what's going on. So essentially, what they are saying is that, look, when you're developing a theory, you know that this is a thing, the phenomena you are interested in, and that phenomena has all these small concepts going on within it. You then develop a statement about how those concepts are related to each other. And then you take that statement and you refine it into a much more shorter and explicit theory statement. And then, of course, you test that theory. So these steps are not something you need to remember at this point, but what we're just trying to share with you is the fact that theory, when you develop it, does not just emerge from nowhere. You kind of have to know the little concepts that are used to describe and talk about a particular the concept that builds that phenomena that you're interested in. Now, I said to you that theory makes its appearance in your life as a researcher in 3 ways. And those 3 ways are this. The first way is that a theory appears as that which underpins your research design. So when you make a decision about which research design will fit your study, whether you'll go qualitative, quantitative, whether you are interested in objectivity, subjectivity, whether you're interested in positivist approaches versus constructivist approaches, all of that, the decisions about which paradigm, which way of thinking about the phenomena you're going to choose. Theory informs you. Theory informs you in understanding that. So that's the first. So theory can make its presence in your work as a paradigm. Secondly, so it becomes, firstly, we say theory is what informs how you're going to understand that topic. If you will all appreciate that we don't approach every topic the same way. We understand and decide which phenomena, how we're going to understand a particular phenomena based on some assumptions that we have about that phenomena. So if I asked you to measure height, you would know that if your study is interested in people's height, then you will probably utilize rulers and other similar sort of measures to understand that. So your theoretical understanding has afforded you the ability to choose which paradigm fits you or doesn't. That you're going to think about height in terms of numbers because it is a numbers game. So you have chosen a positivist approach. So theory has informed your paradigm. But of course, so it shows you the way to look at the thing that you're going to study. Then it also helps to inform our understanding of the phenomena that we are investigating. So theory acts as a lens. So your decision on whether you're going to look at the phenomena of height as a quantitative thing or a qualitative thing is informed by theory. And that theory has shaped the lens that you ultimately use. So, and then finally, theory may guide how you perceive your results. So that which may emerge from your study, that is also informed by theory. So if you think about this journey of the way that we utilize theory, it informs you when you enter the topic, it informs you in relation to how you deal with the topic, and it informs you in terms of how you make sense of the topic. So when you enter the topic, you enter it through the paradigm view about theory. When you're in the topic and you're studying it, you study that topic using the lens that are provided to you by your theoretical choices. Then when you've studied that and you've got findings, you make sense of those findings using whatever theoretical positions you've got. So when we speak about theory, we are literally speaking about it in three possible ways. Theory as it informs how you're going to approach what you're looking at. Theory in terms of how it informs what you're going to do with what you are looking at. And then theory in terms of how you're going to make sense of what you discover from the study. So if you think of those three ways of theory, then you realize that each of those three ways have to be explained to you as a researcher in terms of how you're going to utilize theory. So when I speak to you about theory, I'm talking about theory in its three possible appearances: as a paradigm, as a lens, and as a way for you to understand the new knowledge that you've got in front of you. So, as I've said, when we refer to theory as a paradigm, we're talking about the philosophical assumptions about what constitutes social reality. So when you look at the topic you're looking at, you have some assumptions about what you believe to be true or untrue about that topic. And those are your overriding things, the ontology. That is what we may not you may not recognize that your decisions about how a particular topic should be seen are the product of theoretical contribution, But in actual fact, every assumption that we make about a topic that we get into, those assumptions are based on some loosely formed theories that we have in our head. So if I asked you to study what makes a light bulb turn on, you know from the word go that light bulbs are fueled by electricity, and it can't be that a light bulb could sit in water and turn itself on. You already have those assumptions, and they form your sense of what the social reality of what you are studying is. And they almost govern, they take out all the things that are not possible and leave you with all the assumptions that you think are a possible explanation to help you understand what you're doing. So theory helps in formulating that. We also use theory to guide us in terms of accepting what represents valid evidence or non-valid evidence for that reality that we are looking at. So, and that we call the epistemology. So how we go about creating, how we come to know what we know is driven by our epistemology. So if you look at this, in actual fact, what we're saying is that when you enter your topic as a researcher, we are asking that you should declare some of your philosophical assumptions about the topic that offers the ontological position that you assume. We say you should also declare what you will accept as the means by which you evidence that reality, and that is your epistemology. Then you should also tell us that now that you understand your topic in a particular way, what are the means by which you think is appropriate to investigate that thing? So the methodology, and of course, then the methods that you use. So when it comes to the first way in which theory informs us, theory guides you in terms of your ontological choices, your epistemological choices, in terms of the methodologies that you choose and the methods that you use. That is that first part where I said it guides how you enter the topic. So it guides how you see the world that you're in, how you differentiate what makes for valid evidence in that world, what makes for the best way to get that valid evidence, and what makes for the best methods to gather that evidence. That is the first lens by which, first way in which we meet this issue of theory. What I've done here is I've included a couple of slides with each of these things that you can use outside of this presentation to ask some questions so that you can get a sense of all these assumptive positions that I mentioned. So you can ask things about what do we believe exists, so you understand a little bit about what's socially real or unreal in relation to your topic. Then you are able to ask other questions about how do we differentiate a person who knows this topic and one from one who does not know? What are the methods that we use and so forth? So some of these questions that I've presented here are just useful questions to ask yourself when you have your topic in front of you. They are not anything we need to discuss in this context, but I've put them in there to assist you. Now, in theory, I said to you, people talk at different levels about a theory, and where in your research, where people normally start is where they talk about what it is that they believe constitutes reliable and valid knowledge. So that the second layer of that theoretical, the way in which you meet theory, and that second layer is where these epistemological constructs belong. And basically, there are more than three, but there are three main ones. and many of the things fall in that space. So there are people who believe in what they call objectivism, which is really derived from positivists. And objectivists believe that meaningful reality exists out there, and us as human beings just need to discover it. And that the truth of what is going on with something lies in the object rather than the person looking at the object. So if we were studying a topic and I said, please explain what is going on, an objectivist would believe that that explanation about what is going on remains unchanged as long as the people who are observing have got the right skills to observe. So they believe that there is only one reality. And you will know that there are certain topics, particularly positivist mathematical types of things, where there's one reality, there's just one truth. The subjectivist, on the other hand, argues that, look, the real truth that we are seeking with the topic does not lie in the thing we are studying, but it actually is a result of the interplay between what we are looking at and who it is who is looking at it. So a subjectivist would believe that most of what we see is determined by who we are. That I can literally put in 10 rands, that's 10 South African rands, on a table and ask people, is that a lot of money? In the subjectivist world, some would say it's a lot, some would say it's not so much, and all of them are afforded the right to be telling the truth, because the argument is that the meaning about that money is not to do with the object that they are looking at, is to do with the interplay between the subject who is looking at it and the object. So if you're someone who's poor, 10 rands would look like a lot of money to you. If you're someone who's rich, it would look like nothing. But both of you are not wrong. You are afforded and allowed your subjective position. So there are very particular epistemologies or way of seeing what constitutes reliable and valid knowledge, and those ways support a subjectivist way of seeing things. On the other hand, objectivists would say, look, if I put 10 rands on there, regardless of whether you're rich, poor, or whatever, 10 rands is 10 rands. So the response and what we find in describing it will be the same regardless of the subject or the person looking at it. Because in their view, the value of 10 rands can just be measured objectively and quantified objectively. Then constructionism is of the view that, look, the reality we see is socially constructed by the people who are around it as they engage with the world that they're interpreting. So in actual sense, the argument with constructionism is that, look, a reality that we see is based on what the world, how the subject who's looking at it has been constructed. And subjectivism and constructionism are pretty much in the same world. So many people will argue that actually we are dealing with two things. We have objectivism, and then we have constructionism. And that subjectivism is just one of the sub-elements of constructionism. But all that I'm trying to show here with the epistemologies is that there are different ways of seeing the world. And research is interested in you telling us how you're going to see the world in relation to your topic. Do you believe that your topic is fundamentally about one reality? And if people are going to understand it, all they need to know is what needs to be measured to measure it and quantify it, full stop? Or do you believe that your topic can be best understood by having a mixture of appreciating that what we see is a product of who we have been built to be, It's also a product of how that interplay between the object you're looking at and you, the subject. And whichever one of those you choose, then you find yourself leaning either to quantitative research, qualitative research. So here, theory has assisted you to make a decision about the research paradigm that you will end up subscribing to. There's a fourth alternative that's not captured here, and that epistemological construct is this view that it would be called pragmatism, hey? And that relates to this view that you're saying neither objectivism on its own or subjectivism on its own or constructionism on their own are the right thing. The truth is about meaningfully utilizing each of these constructs to help understand the problem. So at the end of the day, it's not about marrying yourself to one of these. It's more to do with you marrying yourself to one problem and deciding that this problem requires a little bit of objectivism, little bit of that, little bit of that. And that then becomes how we end up with mixed methods research. So if we go back to that whole idea that, look, theory informs your paradigm, it informs your methods, it informs your paradigm, it informs your research design, your methodology, and the methods you use. All of that comes and is born out of this deconstruction of epistemology. Once again, I've offered some questions here which I won't get into, but they're there for you to refer to later when I'm not around and you're trying to figure out you know, how you expand on this issue of epistemology that I described to you. So remember, up to this point, theory has afforded you the ability to choose a paradigm. It's afforded you the ability to choose a lens. The lens is the design that you use. The next part that it affords you, or as part of the paradigm and as part of the research design that you choose, it informs your approaches in terms of the methods you use, the data collection approaches that you use. But finally, it also then becomes before I get to that, it also becomes the way in which you understand what it is that you're going to deal, how you're going to deal with the findings that you've got in front of you. Hey, so that is essentially what theory has done for you. It helped you to figure out the paradigm that you're choosing. It helped you to sort out the lens. The lens are the methods that you use, the methodologies, the designs that you use. And it also then helps you to identify the way in which you make sense of the findings from your study. To do that, we rely on the different types of things. And this we will talk to next time when you do. Once you've met the theoretical understood theory, the next part of this teaching, of the set of sessions you'll have, will talk you through each of the different designs that you come across. But you now know how those designs are arrived at. For example, you know that the qualitative study comes from this subjectivity world. And because it comes from its subjectivity world, we understand that it is about that interplay between the interpretations and meanings that people give to something and the something that we are studying. So when we study something in a qualitative study, it is not really just about that thing. It is about the interplay between you, the researcher, and those people who operate in relation to that thing and also the thing. So, and in this world, with qualitative research, we realize that you are, because you recognize that every part of the journey could change because of the subjectivity of it all. You are constantly creating theories about everything that you see at every point at which you see it. So when people talk about theory, they talk about being that you're creating theory during the process of discovery, and or even after the study. So your theory generation journey starts from the very first word that you get involved in it, because you have assumed from your start that, look, I really don't know what the reality is here. There are multiple realities. The realities depend on me. They depend on the meanings I associate. They depend on the social messages that have created my understanding of this phenomena. And because of that, everything I see is a new learning. So I must be creating theories everywhere. But you will discover that different forms of study options think about it in different ways. So in quantitative studies, remember, you've made a very clear sense that, look, you know that there's one reality. You've understood all the theories that explain that reality, and you believe entirely in objectivism. So it doesn't matter who the actor is, the outcome will always be the same, because of the fact that the truth is the truth, no matter who it is who's holding who's holding the thermometer, or whatever it is that you're using to study. And in that world of quantitative research, people enter the area already with a sense of what the theoretical views are in relation to something. So they call this an a priori theory stroke deductive process. And basically what they're saying is that in quantitative research, we theorize before we do the study. So when you do a quantitative study and you want to measure variables that matter, those variables that you've decided matter are only there because you already have a theory about what is right, what is important, and what isn't. In qualitative research, you generally enter without an understanding of those factors, and you develop them as you build the work. So these two different options now tell you that, look, if you're studying a topic for which you believe you already know the variables that matter, you are literally interested in the relationships between them and how much one matters versus the other, then in all likelihood, that will be a quantitative study. But if you're studying something where the variables are not known to you and you will develop theory as you build the topic, then you are doing more of a qualitative study. So you realize now that the whole relationship between how you process things and theory is quite centrally, they are all kind of dependent on each other, that your the theory informs your methods, your design, first your paradigm, your design, your methodology, your methods. So similarly with mixed methods study, remember, we've appreciated here that you are actually saying in mixed method study that you believe that qualitative paradigms and quantitative paradigms all have a place to play. So you will find that the application of that theoretical position results in a mixed approach where we respect both the qualitative and quantitative strategies. We also believe in the idea that theory can be generated before, and it can also be continually generated as one progresses through the study. So essentially what mixed method research does is it takes all the limitations, all the rules of the other two, and plots them into one. The detail of how all that happens when we do our very specific work around the methodologies, you will get to understand it. But it's a theoretical, in terms of understanding theory, it's just important that you figure out that, hey, my theory, the way in which my theoretical knowledge informs what I do is that it informs how I see a topic, It informs how I decide to research that topic. It informs the methods I will use to research that topic. It also informs how I will treat the results that I have. And once you commit to your theoretical position at the beginning of a study, you've almost said that, look, I commit to seeing this study in this way. And once you commit to that, then all through the journey of your work, we expect to see that same type of positioning being communicated in everything that you do. So what I've done here is that I've just, when I speak about theory as a lens, remember I was saying that theory can be used, when we're looking at it as a lens, it helps to inform some of the ways that you see things. So what I've done here is I've just taken some typical examples of things. So if, say, you were studying the way people learn, in relation to that area of how you see things, you may decide that people learn through watching others. So you would then have a behaviorist lens to looking at how people learn. Then some people would say, no, but actually people learn through experience. Then you would have someone, there's a guy called Kolb who's done some work on the fact that people learn through how they what they experience. Then some would say, no, but people learn through being afforded to learn things superficially, more intensely, and at a deeper level. So then you see the models of learning. So typically, when it comes to theory being used as a lens, that's the point at which you start to now think, okay, theory helps me to see what I'm looking at. But for me to see what I'm looking at, I need to know what concepts are involved in this thing that I'm looking at, so I can identify theories that help to explain these concepts. And I will show you a bit later on in this presentation how you do that. So, and then of course, the theory as new knowledge bit. This is the last bit of how we apply theory, is the part at which we relate to theory in terms of using it to help us to explain what we are seeing. So if you're seeing something and you looked at something with the theoretical vacuum, you would have no idea at all what it is that you're looking at, hey? But because we always look at things with the theory, that theoretical position helps us to figure out what we think is going on. So similarly, if each of you sit in front of the news and you watch the news and you see something unusual happening, how you make sense of what you're seeing is all informed by theory. So you can watch, if you ask a small child to watch a television and you ask them and they see a man hitting a woman on a TV screen, for example, and you ask them what's going on, they'll just say, I see a fight. But if you ask a more grown-up person at your age, then they'll say, I see gender-based violence. That interpretation of what you're seeing is all based on the fact that you each have different levels of pre-existing theoretical knowledge, and you use that to advise the way in which you shape your conclusions. So similarly, when you are dealing with theory, there's a point at which your theoretical position that you've chosen helps for you to explain what you think is going on, to confirm if what you're seeing aligns with pre-existing theoretical positions. And all of these things relate to what we call the conceptual framework. And that's basically where we will now focus our piece of the next part of this session on. Luckily, you've got you're doing section 1 and section 2 of the same lecture in one. So I'm able to actually do two things at once in a way that would be a bit more difficult. It's easier to explain conceptual framework and theoretical frameworks all at once if I'm doing it in a single session, because I will refer to each to each in one session. And what I will do, if you will let me, is I'm going to jump. I refer to a conceptual framework now, but I don't need to in this way. I want to actually talk about it when it relates to theoretical frameworks. And this is where I'm going to take you. So I've jumped the conceptual frameworks, not because I'm not doing it. I just want to do it side by side with theoretical frameworks, which was what I was meant to do in the second session. And that's where we are at now. But before we get onto that, I want you you all currently have a topic, and as a side thing, you should think about your study and remember that your study has got 3 opportunities for you to integrate theory. 3 opportunities. The opportunity of theory as a paradigm, the opportunity of theory as a lens, and the opportunity of theory as new knowledge. So just to identify now that, so if it's about paradigm, let me make some sense of how, in relation to my topic, how do I see reality? Is the reality of my topic about subjectivism? Is it about objectivism? Is it about pragmatism? How do I get to the truth of this phenomena? Through numbers, through narratives, or through a mixture of both? Essentially, that helps you to get a sense of whether this is going to be a qualitative exploration, quanti, or mixed methods. That's where you kind of start. And then, of course, once you make those decisions about quali, quanti, or mixed methods, then it helps you now to think of theory in terms of it being a lens. What are the data collection approaches that are open? What are the research designs that are in front of me? What are the methodologies? What are the methods? And that shapes your direction in terms of how you're going to read. So I want you to, as an exercise, to do that. Now, when I've said think about where theory plays a part, it plays a part in terms of informing how you plan and search for literature around your work. It plays a part in informing how you do the research, how you collect the info, and how you make sense of that information, the evaluation and reflection of it. But what I want to now do is this we will jump up, just put it on there in terms of showing you opportunities for theoretical infusion, that when you're deciding on a topic, to assist you when you're developing a sense of how you speak to the topic. It gives you guidance when you're determining how the information you will seek will look like, how you will organize it and analyze it. All of that is driven by theory, because remember, theory informs your designs. So you recognize now that the whole entire research process as we know it, from you deciding on a topic all the way to you deciding on how you're going to communicate and present your findings, all those are products of theory. But now I've put some further sources that you can look at in terms of that initial element. But now the big bit is this next session. This next section I have put, no, we just jumped that. This next session I have put probably about 25 slides or so, but those 25 slides can literally be captured in 3 or 4 very specific slides. So the other 19 or so slides help you to make sense of what I am now going to tell you. And I'll put them in here for you to refer to them, but not necessarily for me to run through them with you as I present. But in your work, you will come across what people often refer to as theoretical frameworks, or the term theoretical frameworks, and they think about conceptual frameworks. And many teachers all around the world teach this concept and never ever get it right. And what I have discovered is that those who get it right simplify it. So those who get it right do so purely by making turning this apparently very complicated thing into a very, very simple issue. And ultimately, when you look at research or look at anything, the best teachers of any subject are people who can take a very complicated thing and bring it so bare to its most fundamental skeletal presence. And what I want to do is to do the exact same thing with these two concepts, the theoretical framework and the conceptual framework. Okay, so as I say, there's 3 or so slides that really deserve my attention. The rest are for you to look at in my absence. So the first thing is that when you are understanding a topic or you are going to look at something, your understanding of that topic and the assumptions that you have about that topic, that research question, are all driven by some theoretical assumptions that you hold. Or no, you might not hold them yourself. You might have come across them in the literature. So if, say, for example, we were to look at what motivates human beings, there are many theories that tell us what motivation is made out of. People will say motivation is to do with people who are just born that way. Some will say motivation is to do with the balance between incentives, fear of being punished. And then some will say motivation is to do with you having achieved all the lower end requirements. So many of you would have heard of Maslow, that there's this theory around Maslow where he says for people to be motivated to do things, all their more basic needs have to be attended to. So he'd argue that, if you want me to be to work really hard at work and to do well, make sure you pay me enough so I can eat, make sure work is safe so I'm not scared that I'm going to get killed. But all those theories that help you to understand the phenomena, that give you a sense of where that phenomena starts and where it ends. Those theories that you've read about in different texts, and they're literally theories written about by others to explain what you're looking at. Those theories frame your understanding of a topic. They are called theoretical frameworks. So if you believe that you're going to study motivation and you think motivation, there's 4 or 5 explanatory theories that help you to get a sense of what motivation is all about. Those explanatory frameworks are referred to as theoretical frameworks. They are the theories that help to frame your understanding about a phenomena. So the theories that you lean on to get a sense of what it is that's going on. But now, if, say, for example, you were going to study motivation, and maybe motivation and the relationship between someone's motivation and their success. Yep. So you are interested in motivation, you are also interested in success. You might have theoretical theories that help to explain the concept of motivation. Then you will also have theories that help you to frame the concept of success, or the phenomena of success. Remember, your study is interested in motivation and it's interested in success. So you literally have two fields where you're going to extract theories about motivation, theories about success. Because your study is looking at motivation and success at the same time, you may discover that not all the theories of motivation are of interest to you, and not all the elements that relate to the theories about success are of interest to you. So you find that out of motivation, maybe 25 concepts are mentioned by your theories. But when it comes to motivation and its relationship to success, you're only interested in 15 of those. And similarly, when you look at success, there might be 20 models that speak to 45 items, but because you are exclusively interested in success as it relates to motivation, you might only want 8 of those items that are spoken to by the different theories. So the very fact that when you're now studying motivation and success together means that you are cleaning, if you're cleaning out elements of the different theoretical frameworks and only taking 4 concepts from this, 5 concepts from this, because when you relate them together as motivation and success, some of the concepts no longer seem to make sense. Those concepts that remain as the things that you are now interested in, they are what someone would now call a conceptual framework. So that framework is something that where you take all the theories that are relevant to what the concept, to the things you are studying, and you pull out just little bits as you believe, as you see them to matter, hey? So the little bits that you pull out, those little bits become what you call the concepts of interest, hey? They are the concepts that you are interested in out of the many things that all the different theories talk about. Those concepts, when you put them together and you say, right, when I study motivation and success together, out of these 80 concepts that people speak about, there are 35 that I'm interested in. Those 35 become your conceptual framework. They are created by you because you have selectively chosen them out of all the other things that the theories were talking about. So that selection that you do to shortlist the concepts that matter, it results in a new framing of what you are studying. You now have that new framing is what we call a conceptual framework. So when people talk about theoretical framework, they are saying a theoretical framework is pre-existing theories that you think have some relevance to what you're interested in. But your conceptual framework is the short list of concepts that you have taken from each of these theoretical frameworks and you've joined together. So the conceptual framework is created by you. The theoretical framework is created by theories that you've taken. That is essentially the difference. So in a study, what happens? In a study, what literally happens is you will say, I'm studying motivation and I'm going to study success. You'll present all the theories about motivation that you think are important. You'll present all the theories about success that you think are important. But out of all of those, not everything matters when you join theory and success together. So at that point, you have a new study area called motivation and success. That theory that now uses a hybrid of stolen elements from the different theories, hey? And that hybrid of stolen elements from theories from the different phenomena that you're interested in, the little concept you've stolen from each, those become what you call the concepts you are now going to put together to help you understand this new thing that relates to motivation and success all in one. Those concepts are your conceptual framework. So it's above all, everything, if there's anything you understand from this, if you get that, your theoretical framework are the theories that help you to understand the independent concepts in your study. But the conceptual framework is the short list of the things that you've pulled from each of these theories to help you to understand your version of the thing that you're interested in. That is a conceptual framework. So in any study, when people talk about theoretical framework, they are saying, please tell us which theories you related to understand these concepts that you're looking at, this phenomena. The conceptual framework is, out of these theories, what are the specific items that you have put into your shortlist as being key issues that will help you to now have a much more specified understanding of your specific topic. And that's what conceptual framework is. So if you think about it, a conceptual framework ends up being, usually it's represented as a diagram. It's created by you, the researcher, where you pick pieces from the other theories that you refer to, and it then tells you the concepts that matter. Those concepts that matter, interestingly, are also the concepts you need when you're collecting data. So your conceptual framework becomes that framework that also informs your data collection instrument. Because if it tells you that X and Y matter, then you now know that essentially, if you're going to understand this topic that you're looking at, you must ask questions about all the things that are in the conceptual framework. And that is the bit you need to understand. Everything else that I tell you here about what theoretical frameworks are, what conceptual frameworks are, is just going back to that very simple explanation that I've given to you. So I've put it all here for you, so you can refer to it at a later time. But if you have understood the bits that I've shared with you about theoretical frameworks, then you're good. All that I need to do as a final thing is just to show you in reality how certain things work. All these, folks, are just explanations that I've already offered you. Nothing at all any more different. You know, remember the theoretical framework you develop from existing theory about the things that you're looking at. The conceptual framework is your understanding of the researcher of the concepts from those old theories that matters and how you put them together. But what I want to do as a final parting bit is to test drive this framework story. I'm just noticing now that my questions are from social sciences, and I can do this with any topic, but let's choose this. So if, say, your study was interested in the factors that impact the absence of substance misuse and relapse prevention counseling services. So you are interested in what is it that makes people decide that they must go and look for treatment if they've got a drug problem. What is it? You may then think, okay, so in this question that I have in front of you, there are issues around, what are they? There are issues around, you can find theories that talk about why people drink, theories about what motivates people to change their behavior, theories about the social circumstances that people are in. These are just examples. So those theories could be your theoretical framework. But from that theoretical framework, you choose bits that you think the concepts that matter. So in this example, someone has said, look, his first belief is that maybe people act in a particular way because they have beliefs that govern how they act. So the first hunch is that they believe that the choices you make in health are to do with your belief. So the first model or theory that they went and searched for on the internet was this health belief model. This health belief model has about 6 or 7 components that it says matters. But then, of course, someone will say, oh, people's reasoning for stopping has to do with their motivation. And they believe that motivation is guided by Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So immediately they've got these two models. These two models come up with components. One, that health belief model has these 6 components that it talks about. It says for people there are certain beliefs that will affect how you act. If you think that you're very susceptible to something, you'll act. If you think it's a very severe disease, if you think it can get to you, if you think by doing nothing you'll die, all those things affect how you act. So this here is a theoretical, one of the theories that you use. It's a theoretical framing of substance misuse. Similarly, people will refer to another theoretical framing, which I'm going to take you to now. This issue around Maslow's bit. Yes. So the first theoretical framing was the health belief model. The other framing that you have is this belief that, look, people will attend to things if they are appropriately motivated. And Maslow argues that this is it. So you may look at both those theories and say, look, those theories are good for me to understand my topic. But in relation to what I am really interested in, I will only refer to psychological needs, physiological needs, safety needs, as far as Maslow is concerned. And from the other thing, I might only choose 3 or 4 of the components in the health belief model. Those 3 or 4 components and the 2 that you choose here, you add them up to have 6 or 7 items. Those items are your conceptual framework, and they are the thing that you use to develop your questionnaire. So essentially, that is basically at the core of all this, how you go about differentiating between a theoretical framework and the conceptual framework that you use. And what I'm going to do now is just very quickly go to some of the questions that I've got. I will stop sharing the slides that I have and just roll over to the questions, just so that we can look at them. Folks, that is as difficult or as simple as it seems. That is all that there is to really look at in terms of this theoretical framework versus conceptual framework world. You of course need to read it up and read up on the slides that I've shared with you. But in essence, you are able to get to the bottom of the theoretical framework stroke conceptual framework differentiation by just those 2 things that I separated out for you. Now, I'm going to focus in, just jump in on the questions that are in front of me here so we can see. Right. Okay. Can we use pre-existing theory and show a theoretical framework, conceptual framework during the research proposal phase in qualitative research? So basically, there are different types of qualitative research, hey? So there are some types of qualitative research that insist that it's critical that we don't expose ourselves to pre-existing theory, because if we do, then it affects our ability to see the new truth for what it is, because we are tainted by these other theories. So for that hybrid, like grounded theory, you would find that they discourage the use of pre-existing theory. But in the context of the proposal you write for UNISA, we all globally expect you to have pre-existing theory. So you talk about it as being, you do make reference to it, even though it appears to contradict the essence of qualitative research. And that is more to do with the university requirement rather than the requirement of qualitative research. So universities just require that you have a theoretical component, but really there are particular paradigms and particular designs that would recommend that you don't have one. So, and then the next question on conceptual framework, are we allowed to include our own concepts that are not reflected in the guiding theory? Excellent question. Yes, you are. Of course, your own concepts need to have come from some loose fitting literature that you've got. So some people will know that the theories that they are relying on have pointed them to 8 concepts, but they know of 2 other concepts that were just spoken about in the literature. In your conceptual framework, you can include them. So the answer is yes to that, but very good questions. In fact, the first 2 questions have been excellent. Thank you for the clear explanation of theoretical and conceptual frameworks. I understand what data diagram is essential to communicate a study's conceptual framework. Do you recommend also including a diagram to communicate a theoretical framework? Remember, the theoretical framework is the different theories you relate to. So many of the theories have pre-existing diagrams that you would utilize. And I think it's actually quite neat, if you can, to put your theoretical frameworks side by side and then kind of show the pieces from each that you're taking to create this new conceptual framework. So if you can do it diagrammatically, it's excellent. But sometimes it depends on the theory from which you are borrowing things. In what section do I differentiate between the frameworks when creating a framework? So remember, I spoke about the fact that all of you will have work that has got a theory section. So most people will have a chapter 3, or in your proposal, for example, you would have a section where you talk about relevant theory or the theoretical background. You are able then to say, look, to understand this concept, you refer to X theories or whatever theories that you include. But ultimately, you need, if ultimately you want to have a distinct section that talks about theoretical contributions, but you're aware that there's theoretical contributions made by predecessors to you, and then there's your theoretical amalgamation of those theories, which becomes your conceptual framework. What are the maximum number of theories that can be used to develop a conceptual framework? Folks, there's no real answer to this, but as I've said to you, if you're studying something that involves 2 concepts, say for example, you're involving motivation and success, you might think that to understand motivation, there are 2 seminal theories that can't be excluded, and to understand success, there's 3 more seminal ones. So for your case, you'll have 5. Some people may look at a study that has more than 2 conceptual spaces, but maybe those conceptual spaces only need 1 explanatory theory. So you find that the number of theories that you end up with really relates to how well and how lean your theoretical explanations that you seek out happen to be. So, okay. Then in what section? Now I think of there's a question that's been repeated a number of times. Thank you, Prof. Please advise how to access the slides and presentations. You will all get a link to the slides that's sent to you. We email you the links. My team will do that. So for conceptual framework, am I allowed to draw in my own ideas and conclusions? Absolutely, the answer is yes, but remember, all of these things have to be evidenced. So if you have your own ideas and conclusions, we have to have reasonable trust that they come from some reasonable theoretical assumptions that you've got. You can't just come out of nowhere and include items that were not there. Are we mandated to reflect all the concepts from the conceptual framework in the objectives? Well, look, if you have identified in your conceptual framework that these things matter, it would seem rather odd that you don't include them in your objectives. I'm not saying include the items, but remember the conceptual framework might involve items, but your objective might involve a bigger concept. So I might have an objective that says I need to understand the factors that contribute to success. That might be one objective, but in terms of asking about success, you might have 10 components that are built into it. So your conceptual framework would have all the 10 components, but your objectives might reflect them in one sentence. So essentially what you're trying to do is to make sure that the concepts are reflected in your objectives, not necessarily asked for as per objective at every time. I hope that assists. Yeah. Folks, I'm looking at the questions here, and I think that I have exhausted them, and I think we've done a reasonably good job with this. Remember, this is a very complicated space in understanding research, this whole theoretical conceptual framework thing. But the easiest way to open your eyes to it is to kind of simplify it, and then once we've done that simplicity, allow you opportunities to go and test it out, read the slides a bit more, check whether this applies to your studies, and then come back to me with questions. So I will be encouraging you to come back with questions at future sessions, and I hope that you have found this helpful. I want to thank you for tonight's session, and I think that I'm trying to remind myself, as I've got lots of sessions that I teach. I just have to make sure that tomorrow we do not have another session, right? Actually, it's a holiday tomorrow, so there is nothing. Our next appointment together when we develop this is next week, and so our next sessions are next week, and I will check very quickly when next week. My team are frustrated at me because they tell me this all the time. On the 21st is the next session that we'll have. Thank you very much. I hope that you found the session helpful. And on that note, I want to say good night.